The fallen angels, also called the Watchers, Enoch, and God. My interpretation of the Trinity of the psyche. In Sigmund Freud's model of the psyche, he defines 3 interacting agents in the psychic apparatus, which he describes as the ego, the id-ego, and the superego. Freud feels that the unconscious mind is the real monster, and the ego is just a mere cog in the wheel. He said, quote, "The poor ego has a still harder time of it. It has to serve 3 harsh masters, and it has to do its best to reconcile the claims and the demands of all 3. The 3 tyrants are the external world, the superego, and the id." Here, in my opinion, Freud is giving highest status to physical man, ego, and making the ego innocent, and naming the unconscious or the superego as a tyrant. Carl Jung, who is also Freud's friend, labels his trinity of the psyche as the conscious mind, the personal unconscious mind, to describe the subconscious mind, and the collective unconscious to describe the unconscious mind, or Freud's superego. Jung asserts that the ego represents the conscious mind, and hence it is the subject of all personal acts of consciousness, like thoughts, memories, and emotions. Ego, through the process of individuation, carves out the unique being who is able to fulfill the peculiarity of his or her individual nature. Jung believed that individuation is giving birth to who we really are, and thus the process of individuation is the process of becoming our true self. Therefore, the ego creates our self. The conscious mind is your awareness at the present moment, right now. You are conscious of something on the outside, as well as some specific mental functions happening on the inside. The conscious mind includes perceptions, sensations, memories, feelings, and fantasies inside our present awareness or consciousness. It also acts as a filtering system. Your conscious mind will not allow any truths or untruths to take hold if it feels threatened or belittled by them. The subconscious mind is the part of the mind that we are not consciously directing. The subconscious mind never rests, it never sleeps, and is always on duty because it regulates digestion, it controls our heartbeat, circulation of blood, it harmonizes, assimilates, and also eliminates. It is also responsible for Freudian slips that often tell our true thoughts and desires. The conscious mind will lie and will manipulate the truth. The subconscious mind cannot lie and at times will take over and express truths without foreknowledge or permission on the part of the conscious mind. The subconscious mind creates results and behavior according to our conscious, internalized beliefs, and it does it all on autopilot. The unconscious mind, superego, or collective unconscious, is what we would call the soul or the higher self. This is the part of us connected to the source energy, which, seeing the past and the future, knows the bigger picture and the final outcome. Fallen angels, Enoch, and God. the three parts of man's psyche. 1/3 of the psyche is conscious mind. The angels or angels who fell into matter or physical consciousness. 1/3 of the psyche is subconscious or personal unconscious mind, Enoch. 1/3 of the psyche is superego or unconscious mind, or better said, collective unconscious mind, which is Source or God. The ego or the conscious mind can be synonymous with Eastern teachings of the manas, or the intellect or human thinker, the intelligencer or man. Id ego or subconscious, personal unconscious, as the lower ego, self, is linga sharira or desire body, our astral body. And superego, collective unconscious, as the higher self, the combined atma buddhi of manas, the intelligencer. Our conscious mind is the doer and thinker. It operates in the now, the present, through physical, earthly perception, influenced by the 5 senses, which in turn are influenced by the negative and positive energies of the 5 innermost planets, or closest in relation to Earth, flesh. It can communicate with the subconscious through dreams and practice meditation, but not directly to the unconscious mind. Our subconscious mind can and does communicate with the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. It is the mediator or the bridge which connects the two opposite poles. Subconscious mind is a record of all past physical action of self and others, thoughts, beliefs, and desires, whether pure or impure, helpful or harmful. And this part of the psyche is where we hide, bury, or push things down that we don't like or we don't agree with. The issue is, as I said, the subconscious is a record keeper, a scribe. Things that it brings to the surface are to be addressed. If not properly addressed, the record keeper will continue to bring it to the surface or to the conscious mind's attention. The unconscious mind is the vault or storehouse or the source that the subconscious is acquiring all the data and info from the past from. This vault or source contains all past, present, and future thought, action, and desire of all souls. It is manifested and unmanifested potential, alpha and omega, if you would like. The quote, fallen, end quote, angels, perceptions of consciousness falling into matter or flesh, are also called watchers. The conscious mind asked Enoch, the subconscious or personal unconscious, we sometimes refer to it as our conscience, to speak or plead with, quote, God, end quote, the unconscious source or superego or collective conscious, on their behalf. And Enoch says they should be pleading for him actively and consciously in real time for his, the lower ego's salvation. Side note, I also believe that the two witnesses mentioned in the Bible are speaking to the subconscious, Enoch, and the unconscious, manifested source, or God, or lower ego and higher ego, i.e. the record keepers. Only our outward physical man can change the course for the better. The conscious mind was passively, quote, watching, end quote, and not actively, consciously doing. We read in James 1:21-23, "Therefore get rid of all moral filth and every expression of evil, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save your souls. Be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only. Otherwise you are deceiving yourselves. For anyone who hears the word, but does not carry it out, is like a man who looks at his own face in a mirror." A man who looks at his own face, the conscious mind, in a mirror, the subconscious mind. Don't be like the watchers and be hearers alone. Only through being doers of the word, by consciously, actively seeking to uncover our present and past sins, mistakes, can lead us in the path of redemption. This is acquired by taking responsibility for and repenting, or making a conscious, righteous change of those past mistakes. Thus, Enoch told the angels who fell into matter, flesh, it is their thoughts, beliefs, desires, and actions that have created and imprisoned him, the personal subconscious, or the astral or desire body, and only they can change his fate. In Revelation 12:4, we read about the great red dragon and how his tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. In the book of Revelation is the revealing of life cycles, past, present, and future of mankind. In the micro, personally or individually, and then planetarily or cosmically, and then in the macro, it's mankind as a race, age, collectively. For it on an individual basis, the following verse can be seen as a symbol of the psyche or the soul being thrust again into the cycle of reincarnation, and then the subsequent separating into three separate parts or thirds. And the dragon representing a cycle of time, and the quote, flinging a third, end quote, of the stars, the angels, the angles of perception or consciousness down to earth or matter, or 1/3 into physical reincarnation. That 1/3 is the conscious mind, or our ego. So evolution is only obtained by individual, personal, spiritual involution. We exist here in this realm at this time to compensate for any past mistakes, sins, and to make a conscious change in thought and habit. We are here, or we have fallen or been thrown down to earth to experience diversity as well as adversity, and to righteously grow from it. If we do not address things that are difficult to accept and change, we remain in the, quote, outer darkness, end quote, which is oddly enough what we now refer to as the conscious mind. James 1 verse 2 says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." James 1:12, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." 5:3 says, "More than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance." 1 Peter 5:10, "And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." Genesis 5:24, we read, "Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." Enoch, the subconscious or personal unconscious, walked with superego, collective unconscious, or source, God. And source took him, the personal unconscious, for he was not conscious mind. Enoch is renamed as Metatron. Some assert that Metatron means alongside the throne. Others say it means beyond the throne. I suggest the first name, Enoch, was beside the throne, or the conscious thinking mind, and after his transmutation and consequent transmigration, he became Metatron, or one with Source, God, well beyond the conscious throne, or the conscious mind. After the physical body dies, the secondary body must die too. The Eastern philosophers call this the astral or the desire body, which is the lower self or the id-ego of Freud, as well as Jung's personal unconscious. After death, it goes through its own non-physical death or burning off by paying for its father's sins, and is then purified in that process, refined gold. Then it is said that the lower ego, or the personal unconscious, the id-ego, is merged into superego, collective unconscious, or source. When I learned of this, I was immediately filled with inner peace. I had been praying or being compassionate and understanding with and toward my own lower ego or personal unconscious for a few years now. I've thanked my lower self for its purpose in my involution. I began to realize that my lower self was the only way to connect with and communicate with my higher self. And I also began to realize that the burning off or the purifying death my lower self had to endure would be greatly reduced in intensity and length of time if I could make as many positive changes in my remaining days in this specific body. Being said, I'll end this with love yourselves, all three selves, especially the scapegoat, our lower self, and love each other, meaning all beings that contain life, unconditionally. Don't be a watcher or a hearer. Be a doer and save yourself.